Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, and I'm so excited today to have my Theory 1 teacher with me. This is Kolleen Barnes, and if you could please start by introducing yourself and saying where you work and how long you've been a court reporter and a court reporting instructor.
Absolutely. I am Colleen Barnes, and I am one of the full-time tenured professors at Cuyahoga Community College in the captioning and court reporting program. I've been teaching for a couple of decades, but prior to that, I was a freelance court reporter in the Cleveland, Ohio area where I worked for over a decade.
So, you have been doing this for a long time, which I think is so cool and unique because obviously this field has changed so much with technology over the years. So, just like keeping up and
That's
still
very
teaching in
true.
2026 is um, a lot of work, I would think, from the way I've experienced the program. And also, obviously, theory has changed a lot, right? I think when I talk to reporters who did school 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it's very different what they were taught to prioritize in theory and now what we prioritize in 2020s. So, for you, what does it take for you to keep up as an instructor and keep curriculum modern?
Yeah, good question. I should have added to my bio that I also have my associate's degree in court reporting, of course, but then I also have advanced degrees in education and curriculum and instruction and online learning. So to answer your second question, I think that having that knowledge base about what's important in terms of delivering curriculum and designing curriculum helps me. But as far as the field goes, I think that what's most important is being extremely involved in the industry. So instead of just staying in a classroom where I'm teaching students, I'm involved in national associations. I serve on committees at Tri-C, which is what we call Cuyahoga Community College. We have an advisory board that meets with us at least twice a year, and it's made up of professionals that work in the field, and their job is to advise us on what's changing and what's happening in the field so that we are always kind of a step ahead. This semester, in fact, my colleague and I just completed a faculty externship, and we were able to get out into the field, do some observation, and meet and interview with about a half a dozen freelance firms as well as courts. And that helped us also to gain insight into how things are happening in the field right now. Where does our curriculum stand? Is there anything new that's coming that we need to embrace in order to stay on top of things?
Wow, that's amazing to so basically you're going out into the real life to make sure that the school matches the real life. I love that. And doing that for as long as you've taught core reporting, I believe. Yeah, that's amazing considering how much things have changed.
Yeah, it's a field where everything is always changing, just like technology in our own lives, right? From cell phones to computers, it's all continuing to change. And so we have to adapt to it in our own lives. Well, court reporting is no different. And so we just keep taking the technology changes and embracing them for, our use.
Is there any like particular example you have of like an adaptation that you remember making in the past that was memorable?
Oh my gosh, I mean, there were so many. So when I went to court reporting school, we were really still mostly writing to paper. There was CAT software, but it was sort of, it wasn't an individual program yet. Like everybody didn't have it. So there was like one in the back of the classroom that I learned about. But I wouldn't say I was a real-time writer at that time because that just wasn't the focus, right? So I watched that transition into real-time writing. I embraced, CAT software myself in my own work as a court reporter. And then, we've seen that evolve. We've seen, of course, the move into remote depositions and not just doing everything in person, thanks heavily to COVID, but it was already starting to happen because the technology existed even prior to COVID. So, but whatever the technology is, I just see that court reporters constantly embrace it and make our jobs easier and better so that we can provide the services that we do.
That's amazing. Yeah. And actually going off of that, so in the real life for court reporters, we have remote depositions, but also for court reporting students, we're in the era of online school, which I think is also like pushed forward by COVID. Um, so now that we're in this era of pretty much almost every good STEM program is online, what do you see as kind of the advantages or disadvantages compared to being able to like go to court reporting school in person for reporting students today?
Yeah. So I think the number one advantage is accessibility. So, not every state in the country has a court reporting school. In fact, there are probably about 25 that don't even have one in their state. So we're able to teach students from all over the country to help fill that need. We've even had international students.
Wow.
So we could never have done that if we weren't online. Um, Also, the downside of that, of course, tends to be the isolation factor. And people have to be a little bit more self-disciplined in terms of committing to the practice. You're not coming in at a assigned time and doing your work in a classroom. And there are certain learners whose style of learning would be better served being face to face. There's no doubt. This is a hard program. And so, it takes a certain amount of self discipline no matter what, whether you were coming in person or not, you would still have to go home and practice. But that being said, I like to think that the benefits outweigh the other side, at least for me, I guess.
I think I would be one of those people who would be helped by going in person. But uh, like you said, either way, it all comes down to you still have to be disciplined with practicing by yourself. So.
You do.
Yeah, so I also wanted to ask, so for CCR, specifically at Tri-C, um, what are some values or things that you emphasize in your teaching or in your staffing? Because I remember, I think everyone's a court reporter, everyone's from Tri-C, and
Absolutely.
what classes you offer.
Yeah. So, as far as what values maybe we focus on, I think the number one thing that I would say we focus on is student support, right? So programs, it's easy to recruit people into the program. Hey, you're interested in court reporting? Okay, come to our program. But we don't want to just bring you in the door. We want to make sure that we're providing the support to get you finished and out and into the career. And so we also want our online students to feel a part of a community, to feel that, there is this giant support system there behind them. The faculty work really hard to be very accessible. So Anna, having been a former student, would know that, not only will I hold a live class that I'll record if you're at work and you can't see it, I'm also available to hop on a Zoom or a WebEx like this and work with you one-on-one. I'm going to give you feedback every single week. You can email me. I also use Remind, which is a text messaging service. So you can text me. I'll have students contact me morning, night, weekends. But if I can give an answer, I'm going to try to, because I was a court reporting student. And I know that if you just ran into a technology glitch, and now your progress or your ability to practice has been compromised, you're stuck until you hear back from me. So we're really very accessible. I think the college is a big college. We're fortunate then to have the supports that the college offers. So we do have 24/7 tech support through the college. The college provides Microsoft Word to all the students. Um, One of our mission statements as a college is affordability and accessibility. So, like tuition wise, we're one of the most affordable programs, but additionally, more than 30% of our students get some type of support through scholarships, and they're not all income based. So, I think that we work very hard to make the program accessible to students, and then to provide the support that students need in order to make it all the way through the program. As far as classes that we teach, well, I'd like to say we teach it all, but so we're going to teach all of those steno-based classes from theory all the way through speed building. We're also going to provide the classes in the CAT software, so from learning to use CAT software all the way through an advanced technology class where you're going to create your own transcript, utilizing all of the components from title page to certificate page. You'll do an internship where you're going to be out there writing alongside a working reporter. And that is, I think, one of the most exciting times for court reporting students. And again, because we have such extensive relationships all over the country on the national level, we place our students in our internships, and our students almost always have job offers coming to them from that internship experience. I've been teaching, gosh, I don't even want to say it out loud, for 28 years. I've never known a student who finished going through stenography school at in our program that didn't have a job offer waiting for them when they were done. And sometimes it's multiple offers. So, and that's, I think, a tribute to our program and the fact that we have this reputation that our graduates are ready and skilled to go into the field, but also it speaks to the demand in the field and the fact that reporters are just needed everywhere.
Definitely. That was really an encouraging part of what encouraged me to join this program is that, demand is very high. Everyone has a job when they finish, and that's like a focus for you guys. So,
Yeah, it's
um,
so true. And I'll say that because I just finished this externship. We met, as I said, with more than a half a dozen firms, and some of them were large national firms. They're all hiring. They would take every steno writer that applied to them. And every single one of them, when we asked a question about income potential, said their steno writers make over $100,000 a year, and many of them said up to $200,000 a year. So the income potential is there too. It's hard. It's hard. Getting through court reporting school is hard, but it's so worth it if you just stick with it.
right. It is. It is so hard, but it's so worth it, is what I hear constantly. So thank you for that. Um, so moving on to the next question, from the perspective of not just Tri-C, but just in general, if there's a prospective student out there who's looking to go to school for steno reporting, what would you encourage them to look for? What makes a good school? What makes a good teacher?
Yeah, great question. So I think I'll go back first to the idea of support. So you want to make sure that you're going to be supported all the way through school. And I think that when you inquire into a program, how timely they are in responding to you may be an important factor because that may be an indication of what your communication is going to be like with them down the road as well. So I think it's important that you have court reporting instructors who have worked in the field, and we all have. That's an important piece. But you don't want teachers that only know their own craft. They also need to know how to teach that craft, right? So teaching is its own discipline, and there's something to that process that shouldn't be um, overlooked. So I think it's important to kind of know the credentials of the people that are going to be teaching you. What kind of experience do they have, or what kind of knowledge do they have on the teaching side, as well as, of course, they need to have knowledge of court reporting. I would also, look at graduation rates and job placement. I think that's important as well. With programs being online and mostly having like a national presence, it's important to know what kind of reach do you have outside of your local area? Will you be able to help place me in an internship in another state or another area? And so I think those would be good things to know as well.
That's a great point about, being online. You could be from anywhere, but maybe your school may not have contacts in that area. So I
Yeah,
didn't
I've
think
heard of
about that
students who
before.
have to find their own internship placements, but that's not how we do things. So,
Hmm. All right. So going back to the idea of steno school is hard, but it's worth it. Um, Obviously, one of the most talked about things in regards to steno school is how many people drop out or give up because it's so hard. So, in your experience, seeing everyone that you do, you see the Theory 1 students, you see the first people who come in. How many people actually drop out? Like people say 90% of people drop out. Is that really true? And do you see them drop like quickly, or do you see people drop after trying for a while? What's the trend there? And is 90% still accurate?
so I can't answer specifically as to whether or not 90% is accurate as far as completion, because I don't really have the data to say how many started, how many finish exactly. That being said, I can speak from my own experience. So in theory, we certainly don't lose 90% of students, but we do lose a lot of students within the first theory class. And it usually happens because students have underestimated the commitment that it takes to be a court reporting student. And they realize that this isn't for them, or maybe it isn't for them right now. They have things they need to get in place in their lives in order to commit to it. And that's not uncommon either, that we have students what we call stop out and take some time off and then come back to the program. Um, we also offer a 4-week free mini course that students can take to learn more about the field, more about our program. And we do think that that as a tool has helped us to help students be more prepared entering the program, so that we don't just have students coming in not having a good realistic understanding of what the expectation is going to be. But that being said, people often think, oh, I can do 15 or 20 hours a week. I really want to do this. And then when they get right down to it, that they're not turning in anywhere near that much homework or practice to me. And so very quickly, they kind of, drop away that way. The other place where we sometimes see students leave is in speed building. If they find that they're, getting stuck after a period of time, they're not making progress, that can feel very frustrating. And it makes you think that you can't really do this. In my experience, if you're willing to commit that 15 to 20 hours a week, every week to practice, you are going to keep making progress. There was a really well-known firm owner here locally, and she's long retired now, but she used to come in and talk to my intro students. And one of the things she used to tell them was that she got stuck at 140 words per minute for 9 months. And she would say, women have babies faster than I got through 140 words per minute. But the moral to her story is that she didn't give up. She hung in there. And after the 9 months, the progress came. And yeah, that would be a long 9 months. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but the point is it's the consistency, right? She kept practicing. She didn't give up, and the persistence, right? And that's what got her through. And then she ended up owning her own firm and writing for F. Lee Bailey, I think she said at one point, a famous attorney. So, and I also tell students, you know what, I'm no more special than you are. If I can do this, you can do this, but you do have to be willing to give things up to get there, right? You may not be able to go out with friends every Friday night. You may not get to watch the television show that you've been watching for the last 8 years, but it'll be there for you after you're working as a court reporter. You can, watch it on some streaming service when you're making your $100,000 to $200,000 a year.
So we mentioned underestimating the commitment and persistence, the feeling of wanting to give up creeping in. So would you say, like, maybe is that the traits you see between people who do end up giving up or people who do end up graduating? Like, what is the X factor? What gets people there and what is in people who don't make it, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that if you're a person that has a lot of self-doubt, if you're someone that is really hard on yourself, where you think that if you don't see progress within 3 weeks, it means you're a failure and you're no good at this and you can't do this. If that's kind of your mentality, then you're going to want to put supports around yourself to deal with that, right? Whether that's meeting more regularly with your instructor or, however you would boost yourself up to overcome that. If you're more of a growth mindset and you believe that by working hard and building the skill you can accomplish things, then this is going to at least be an easier process for you. It may not be shorter, but the mental side of it, I guess, because it does feel defeating. Court reporting students are always trying to pass a speed that they're not quite able to write yet. And as soon as you are able to write it, the next day you're trying to pass the next speed that you can't quite write yet. And as you know, Anna, it's 95% to pass. There's no, I don't even think doctors need 95% to pass something. It's hard. And there's a reason why we are so skilled at what we do and so elite, and why we're paid what we're paid, and why we're in demand. And it's because of the level of skill that we can provide, but it doesn't come easy.
Yeah, I shock people all the time when I say, if I get 94, I failed. So definitely for me, the two things that really help me to push through, is definitely what you said about expectations, just coming in knowing it's going to be like the hardest thing I've ever done. And then the other thing I always do is I look at all the people who have succeeded. I look at all the people who are graduated, have been court reporting forever, are at 2025, and I know it is possible, right? It might not feel possible, but it is possible because there's the reality right there. So keeping that in mind really helps me when I'm
Good. And
in
that's why I
trouble.
like to say, right? I'm not any more special, and neither is any other working court reporter out there. And we all sat in your seat, right? We've all been exactly where you are. Maybe our life, situations were different, of course, but the skill of learning and the frustration and the process, we've all been through it. If we can do it, you can do it.
The next one is a question that I asked before I really understood court reporting, and I think a lot of people ask before because they don't understand court reporting is, oh, isn't AI going to take over this? Like, can't AI do that job? And people don't understand the intricacies of our skill. But what would you say to someone who's concerned about, is AI going to do this? Can I really enter this schooling? Can I invest now?
Yeah. So I think that first of all, it's a good question, and anyone who is interested in court reporting can and should be asking it. As long as I have been a court reporter since the 1990s, we have always heard that there was some technology that was coming along that was going to replace court reporters. And the thing in my mind that I would share is that technology is great. And again, court reporters keep embracing it, but the technology is only a tool to the job. The job needs the person to be there. We need the certified court reporter to be in the room protecting the record, and that's not going to change. So, one example that I sometimes give with AI now is we've probably all flown on planes that had autopilot. And we weren't even aware that for a whole long section of our flight, the pilot was not the one responsible, but he was still in the cockpit, right? And I'm not volunteering to get on a plane that doesn't have a pilot in the cockpit. And so court reporting and AI, I think, is a little bit like that, we still need that human being to be there protecting the record. Court reporters can be called into court to testify about their transcript. It is our work product. AI cannot do that. So, for a million different reasons, right? The person and the product that we supply depends on us. And if we can use AI to make ourselves more accurate, or to produce transcripts faster or more reliable, if there's a way for us to use it, that's what we're doing. And that's what we'll do. And that's what we'll continue to move towards implementing into our curriculum so that students are prepared to use it, but we still need to be in the room taking the record.
That's a great answer. So, court reporting is a person's job, but AI is just a tool for a job. It is not a
Absolutely.
person doing a job. Kind of related on that aspect, the last thing I wanted to ask was I think Tracy's kind of a unique court reporting program in that it offers not only steno, but also voice reporting and digital reporting. And just my experience coming into this field, looking online, talking with people, someone who didn't know anything about this before. What I read online is that many steno reporters and voice reporters wholly reject digital reporters and refuse to even engage in discussion with them sometimes. I wanted to ask from a school that has all three, is there a more balanced perspective or approach to thinking about how digital reporters do or do not fit in the court reporting world?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked this, because I think that what I have seen is that, generally speaking, the reporters that just don't want to look at the other alternative technologies may not be as informed as they need to be about what they are and how they work and what need they're filling in the industry. People can be afraid of change, and it can feel intimidating to some people, I think. But once you get to really become educated about the three different methods, I think that's the most important word that I can share, is that they are just methods going back to that human certified court reporter. So if you're certified as a steno writer or a voice writer or a digital reporter, you're going to be able to go in and take the record. You're going to ensure that it's accurate. You're going to be able to create and provide that transcript to the attorney when it's needed. And that's what the person does. And that's what we teach. No matter which method you choose, it's going to be that you become that fully qualified, skilled, certified court reporter in the room. And then as far as steno and voice, which if you hold yourself to a high enough standard, have very similar outcomes in terms of being able to be real time, and as soon as a word is spoken, have it coming up in, English on a transcript, et cetera. A lot of people, I think, in the past thought that voice reporters or voice writers were really just using tape recording. And maybe that's where they started from, but the same way that steno reporters didn't have CAT software way back in the day either, right? We also evolved from writing it on paper notes and typing it up on a typewriter. So, yeah, so I think the more informed people are about the different methods and how they're used. The other side of it is that, digital reporting exists because technology has allowed it to, and because there is a need for reporters that isn't being filled by the steno and the voice reporters that are out there. There's way more demand than there is supply, right? And so courts and agencies have had to look for alternatives to fill the record. But when we were doing our externship, as I said, we met with firms that utilize all three methods. And while they're still hiring digital reporters, they would hire every steno reporter that comes to them, because they have even more need there. So I guess my answer or my advice to everyone is choose the method that is the most appealing to you, and then build your skill and go out to work, because it's the certified court reporter that matters far more than the method necessarily that they're using.
Mm, definitely. So method, but not that doesn't change the certified court reporter part. I've heard
Yeah.
that complain a little that like some people are like, oh, digital reporters, like they don't produce a good product or they don't know what they're doing. And from the impression that I got from our digital reporting program is that you would be producing a good transcript in the end. You just use something else to take it, I guess.
In our program at Tri-C, students who become digital reporters are learning all of those additional skills about transcript production, et cetera, et cetera. There are some programs out in the world that, fast track you into digital reporting in like a month or something. I don't know, as fast as you can get through the program. So when you say there's a reputation out there sometimes that the digitals aren't as prepared or as good, that may be true. And it may be that they didn't choose wisely in terms of how they educated themselves towards the job. I would also say that occasionally there's a steno reporter or a voice reporter who could be doing a crummy job too. And if you do a crummy job, you're not going to be hired back, and you're not really going to have much of a career. So that wouldn't really, be in anyone's best interest.
For sure. All right. Thank you so much for that discussion. That was really helpful. All right. So we're here at the end, and I just wanted to have kind of a final wrap-up question. So, how do you see court reporting and captioning education continuing to evolve, and any wishes for the future?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it will continue to evolve, most of all, probably from the integration of different types of technology. I think we'll, continue to be primarily online programs providing education, all over the country and meeting that need. I think that we'll continue to look at how to make the curriculum more and more individual based. So we have a lot of differentiated learning in our program because students in a 140 speed building class might be working on 120 Q&A, might have passed a 140 and are now working on a 160 Q&A. So you're always looking at how you can meet the needs of those learners, on more individual bases, and how technology can lend itself into helping us to do that as well. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Anything else you wanted to say you didn't get in?
My gosh. I don't think so. I mean, I would say thank you, Anna, for having me and for putting all this information out there that I think is so helpful to anyone who's interested. And I guess what I would end with is saying that court reporting school is hard, but the career of court reporting changed my life. And the reason that I love my job teaching court reporting students is because I get to see their lives changed when they make it through and enter this field. I don't think you ever meet a court reporter who doesn't love what they do and aren't passionate about it. At least I've never met
I
one.
haven't either.
Yeah. So I guess my advice would be if you're interested in court reporting, do your research, be like Anna, which you already are if you're watching this, right? Ask the questions and don't hesitate to contact me if I can answer questions for anyone. The field is out there just ready and waiting and they need you. And so I hope to see you someday at a conference.
Thank you so much. All
You're
right.
welcome.
See you, everybody.